How do you feel about the Old Testament, or the Hebrew Bible, as it's better called? It's there alongside the New Testament, but we sometimes ignore it, or perhaps we're just vaguely aware of its existence. Some parts seem strange. There are long lists of complicated rules about everything. There are long genealogies of people who are never mentioned again. There are long and sometimes boring accounts of history and wars. But these are all alongside other passages that we may easily find more amenable and attractive. Now, there's one short section of the Hebrew Bible that stands out. It's a part of the history books, but it's so different in style and approach that even in translation, it stands out. It's called The Court History of David, and it consists of the second book of Samuel, chapter 9 to the end, and the first two chapters of the first book of Kings. This little bit is uniquely vivid in its accounts. They seem to show people in a way that we're familiar with from our own lives, people with inconsistent motivations and mixed morals. It begins with the Bathsheba affair. King David has a fling with Bathsheba when the city is empty because the troops are fighting away, and he gets her pregnant. So he arranges for her husband to return to Jerusalem so that he could be taken to be the father. But this doesn't work, so he then tells the commander of the troops to put him in the most dangerous places so that he will be killed. And when David hears that soldiers have been killed, he is angry. But when he hears that this husband was one of them, then he is pleased. Later on, Absalom, David's son, a famously beautiful man, plots with others to rebel against David and is killed in the fighting. But when David hears this, he's not pleased, but he's distraught. My son Absalom, he says, would I had died in your place. Absalom, my son. And the army creeps back to the city like troops coming back from a defeat. And then the loyal commander says, I see that if Absalom were alive today and we all dead, you would be pleased. And the story goes on. There's quite a lot of it. It tells how Solomon, a later son of David and Bathsheba, receives David's blessing and becomes the new king. It's a bit like a soap. Not that I like soaps that much, but it has a directness and an excitement that keeps the story running all the time. So if you don't like the Old Testament, then this is a very good passage to start by reading. And now a reading from this book, from the second book of Samuel. The Lord is my rock, my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold and my refuge. My Saviour, you save me from violence. In my distress I called upon the Lord, to my God I called. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry came to his ears. He delivered me from my strong enemy, from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. They came upon me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my stay. He brought me out into a broad place. He delivered me because he delighted in me. The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness, According to the cleanness of my hands, he recompensed me. For I have kept the ways of the Lord, and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his ordinances were before me, and from his statutes I did not turn aside. I was blameless before him, and kept myself from guilt.